Okay, wonderful. Thank you. Welcome, everyone. I'm Tricia Moss-Larenko, President of NYSABA. On behalf of NYSABA and the families and individuals that benefit from behavior analytics services, we're thrilled that you could all be here to advocate for behavior analysis in New York. Because you're all muted, I'm just hoping that you guys will come cheer with me, but we're over 130 strong here today. Woohoo! We appreciate every one of you who's here to advocate for fair access to applied behavior analysis. Throughout ABA Advocacy Week, we will be meeting with many of you and your legislators. So be sure to stay on at the end of the rally for information on Advocacy 101 with our very own Julia Donnarumma from Manat, Phelps and Phillips. Don't worry if you don't already have an appointment set up for this week. At the end of this rally and throughout the week, we will provide you with information on how to contact your representatives. As you are likely aware, we have some very special guests today. So the sponsor of Assembly Bill A3523, Assembly Leader Crystal Peoples-Stokes. Okay. The sponsor of Senate Bill S1662, Senator James Skoufis. And Chair of the newly formed Committee on Disabilities, Senator John Mannion. So without further delay, we will turn to my NYSABA colleague, Debbie Napolitano, to introduce Senator Mannion.
Hi, all. Thank you so much for coming. We're going to potentially flip the script a little bit on our schedule because people are running late, but Senator Mannion, I can't tell you how thrilled we are to have you here. I'm the chair of the New York State Association for Behavior Analysis Legislative Committee. This has been a long road, and I've been doing this advocacy thing for a long time, but this year feels different. In December, I emailed Senator Mannion to congratulate him on an incredible campaign and win. I was so thrilled about his winning his seat, and he responded immediately and let me know his passion and support for behavior analysis, and I was blown away. In addition to someone I knew would be a huge champion for education and those who need their voices raised in Albany, I was so comforted to know that we had a champion for our profession in the Senate. If you haven't heard, you've probably been living under a rock, that Senator Mannion was named this year as the first chair of the newly created Committee on Disabilities. He has a passion for this work, and he's already done so much in his role as the first chair. He comes to the Senate with such a great deal of amazing experience. He was a teacher in the Syracuse area for 30 years, and he's an advocate for teachers as the president of the West Genesee Teachers Association. He has several of his constituents on this rally today. Some of the folks from the Families for Effective Autism Treatment in the Syracuse area. And I just want to welcome you, Senator Mannion, to our rally. Thank you so much for being here.
Thank you, Debbie. And thank you for everything that you do and that everybody out here does to make sure that kids and adults get the services that they need. And, you know, we all have somebody in our lives that brings us here, and I certainly do. I've seen the great advances that someone can make when they have the therapy that fits them to a T. And for myself and my wife and my son, that was exactly the case. We have personal experiences where we watched our son decrease the number of atypical behaviors that he had and increase the amount of skills that he had, specifically because of everything that the therapy did for him. And let's be honest, it is helpful not just to people who may have a certain challenge, it's helpful to all of us, and it's based in research. We have seen the good that it does way beyond, you know, people that may experience this therapy. I use it. I used it in my classroom. I think it just became a part of something that I used in the class, because there's definitely, as I said, empirical evidence that shows that this is something that works. It has to be expanded. We have to make sure that everybody that can benefit from this therapy has access to it. And that's why it's a really easy thing to fight for. I lived it, I watched it, it works. So it's something that we're all going to push in the same direction for. And I'm proud to be a supporter of it. And let's keep going forward. We got a lot of great allies and get this done. So thank you for having me here today. Know that I stand with you, and we're going to keep making sure that people get the services that they need to be successful. Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you very much, Senator Mannion. I am not sure. I think because of some schedule changes, Julia, I think we're going to talk some about some of the data that we have for behavior analysts. Of course, we have data on the impact of this scope restriction, and then we will hopefully have our other guests arrive. So, so Julia, do you want to? I will share my screen, and we will and we'll talk a little bit about the data on the impact of the scope restriction in New York. Going a little bit off script here, so everybody bear with us. One of the things, this is one of the things that we share with legislators when we're meeting with them, and because we know that the license was put in place in order to fix the issues with the autism insurance. When we were able to provide services to individuals with autism, unfortunately, we didn't have a license in New York, so we needed a license to provide those services. At the time, if you look at this graph that my co-chair, Maureen O'Grady has created, this is a graph from a study by Zhang and Cummings, and it shows that the dark bars are the Northeast, and including Massachusetts, Vermont, et cetera. It shows that New York, at the time of this study, which was published in at the end of 2019, already had the lowest number of behavior analysts per 100 individuals with autism in all of the Northeast. And so, we're New York. We're supposed to have services. What happened in 2014 when the license was enacted, we had a large increase in behavior analysts and in new behavior analysts because of the license. And then you can see that we essentially flatlined in terms of new behavior analysts. If you look at the data from the rest of the country compared to our data in New York, you can see that when the license was enacted in New York, essentially, we separated in terms of our ability to build capacity and grow new behavior analysts from the rest of the country. So this light gray line is the growth in the rest of the country, and here's our growth in New York. So what we have here is very significantly a problem.
Debbie, you're muted right now.
I don't know how that happened. That's so weird. All you have to do is to monitor any Facebook page in New York or outside of New York, and you'll hear how difficult it is for families to find behavior analysts, how difficult it is for behavior analysts to get licensed in New York, and why why we have a very difficult time finding new behavior analysts in New York. So I'm going to share my another visual that Maureen created. She's our visual person. And Maureen, I hope you will be willing to describe these data. I will pull them up and share my screen.
And I think as Debbie's pulling it up, it's important to note that we'll be using and referring to these charts throughout our meetings this week. So thank you both Debbie and Maureen for the impromptu tutorial.
Sure, no worries. Okay, so what we have displayed here is several survey data that we've collected. So the first one on the top left is people who have applied to be a licensed behavior analyst in New York and what the outcome of that application process was. So we know that it is difficult to become a licensed behavior analyst in New York, and we can see that 55% of applications have been denied. So that's problematic, especially because we do not have enough behavior analysts in New York to serve the populations that need our service. So this is problematic. If we go over to the next image, the top right, that same group of individuals was asked if they've considered moving to a different state because of the restriction of the scope of behavior analysis in New York. And 76% of those people surveyed said yes, they would move outside of New York State due to those issues. So the bottom two, these are a larger set of individuals who took the survey. The one on the bottom left is actually behavior analysts who do not live in New York. So these are BCBAs who are outside of New York, and they were asked if there were not a scope restriction in New York, would you move there? And I can't really see that, but I think it's 78% said that they would move to New York. So we have a pool of individuals who are willing to come to New York and to work, but because of our scope restriction, they are not taking that chance. And lastly, we put a survey out during our NYSABA conference, and it was basically about access to services. So do you know someone who does not have autism who needs services? And I can't see that number, but it's a 91. I'm sorry, my eyes are not that great. But you can see it's thank you. So basically there are individuals who do not have autism who need ABA services in New York and cannot access it. The next larger portion there says that you know someone who has autism and cannot receive services. So these are individuals who meet criteria in New York State for ABA services, but cannot access it, most likely due to the decreased number of behavior analysts in New York. And lastly, I think it's 11% said that they don't know anyone that has any of these issues, which is good. But for a majority of people that we surveyed, they did have access to service issues. So it's really important for legislators to see this information so that they understand that this touches beyond just the autism population. We can't serve the autism population because we have decreased amount of behavior analysts, but it touches more than just the autism population.
Thank you, Maureen. Debbie, could you throw up our final visual?
Absolutely.
Thank you. And I can even walk through that one. And good morning or afternoon, everyone. I'm Julia Donnarumma. I help lobby on behalf of the association in Albany, and in more normal times would have been running around the Capitol and the Legislative Office building today on your behalf and all week long. So here we have a really terrific map of the United States, and you will see obviously that New York is the outlier. It is in bright red. The states in blue have also passed licensing laws for behavior analysis, but there is no restriction on those licenses. The gray, of course, are the states that have not passed any licensing laws with respect to behavior analysis. And then there is New York. New York that not only has a license law in place, but has restricted that license so that behavior analysts can only work with individuals on the autism spectrum. And so we use this in a lot of our meetings to show legislators exactly how much of an outlier New York State is and why it is so hard for people to recruit professionals to the state, and why it is so enticing for those of you who do have perhaps board certification to move outside of New York. And that is exactly the paradigm we want to change. And so that's why everyone's here today. While we are waiting for two other speakers, I'm going to do what I would have done at 12:30, which is provide you with a little bit of our legislative update. And so as you know, the Association for Behavior Analysis has been working to expand this licensing law now for behavior analysts for I think about 5 years. It's been many years since they first started upon this journey. In January of this year of 2021, our sponsors, who will be joining us shortly, introduced new bill numbers. And that's because the legislature works in a 2-year cycle. So 2021 was the beginning of a new 2-year cycle. And so our sponsors had to reintroduce the bill. The bill numbers, for your edification, are Assembly Print, or A, 3523. And in the Assembly, our sponsor is Assemblymember Crystal Peoples-Stokes. She's from the Buffalo area and is currently serving as the Assembly Majority Leader. So we look forward to hearing from her directly in a few minutes later on in the program. And in the Senate, the bill number is Senate, and there's always an S that goes before every Senate bill, just like there's an A before every Assembly bill. It's S1662. And while we were really grateful to have Senator Mannion here this morning as probably our preeminent champion in the Senate, our sponsor is actually Senator James Skoufis, who actually embraced this issue several years ago on our behalf. And he will also be joining us and speaking to all of you this morning. He is currently conducting a committee meeting. He is the chair of the Investigations and Government Operations Committee, and so he's running a committee meeting and will be joining us as soon as that wraps up. So both bills have been referred to the higher education committees in the legislature. And we are meeting with the Senate and Assembly higher education committees later this week. And anyone who would like to join those meetings who is not currently scheduled to participate, please let me know, or let Debbie know, or any member of the NYSABA team, and we'll get you invited to those meetings. We would love to have you join us and to offer your perspective. And we're all very hopeful that the incredible amount of support that's being demonstrated today at this rally and for the week will help us to push this over the finish line. So thank you very much. I think, since I don't think Senator Skoufis has joined us just yet. Have you? Maureen, are you letting people in?
I am letting people in. I do not see him yet. I will let you know when he comes in.
That's right. That's okay.
Julia, I did just put the email address in the chat for folks if they want to contact us. And Maureen, can you put the link to email the folks, Assembly and Senate representatives, in the chat as well? Thank you.
Yes, no problem.
Thank you. So I think I might as well go through a little bit more of my sort of lobbying 101. For those of you who are new to participating in legislative meetings, I thought I would just run over a few things to consider as we go through the week. Just for your edification, a member of the NYSABA Legislative Committee and I plan to participate in every one of these meetings that is scheduled this week. So you will not be responsible for starting the meeting or leading it off, but your participation is essential nonetheless. NYSABA, I think, has provided all of you with some talking points in advance, and you've also seen some of the great graphics and visuals that we plan on sharing during most of our meetings this week. So that will help. But if you take a look at the talking points, that should provide you with sort of a sense of the ground we intend to cover in each of these meetings. The talking points have the bill numbers in them, so you'll be all set there, and also reference our sponsors. So you have that to look forward to reference in case you weren't able to take notes a few minutes ago when I was speaking. And we also, in addition to our lead sponsors in both houses, we have an incredible list of co-sponsors in both houses. So in many instances, the legislators with whom we are meeting may already be co-sponsors on the bill. And so if that is the case, then a member of the NYSABA Legislative Committee will alert you to all of that. And we'll be sure to point out to the legislator and to thank them for being a co-sponsor on the bill, excuse me. The one thing I would advise all of you to do in advance between now and the time you have your first legislative meeting is to have an idea, if you can, of what you might want to say in advance, sort of to have your elevator speech, so to speak. And honestly, on Zoom, you really can many times get away with reading from a script. Pardon me all for just 1 second. So if you've signaled your willingness to meet with your legislators, then it will be important for you to offer your story and your perspective, because especially when you're meeting with your own legislator, you are the constituent and you are the voter. So they do want to hear from you and they want to know what you have to say. If you have volunteered to participate in any of the additional key meetings that we're conducting this week, say with the Senate and Assembly higher education committees, or with our sponsors, then again, your perspective will be valuable and we will hope that you would be willing to speak up. And thank you in advance for agreeing to participate in those meetings. And honestly, don't worry about saying the same thing in every meeting, because every time we'll have a new audience. So they won't know that you've already said it 20 times. A few of us might know, but most of us will not. I have a few tips and tricks for you, and then I'm going to turn this over to some. I believe our sponsor has joined us, so if he gives me just a few minutes, then I'll turn it over to the senator. Just a few tips, classic Zoom tips and tricks for all of you. Please join a few minutes early to the meeting if you can. There's no waiting room like there was for this. There won't be waiting rooms for the Zoom meetings. So once you click on the Zoom link, you'll be you'll be brought right into the meeting. So also please mute your line when you're not speaking, just classic Zoom rules. Because if people are walking around in the background or your dog is barking, as was the case in my circumstances, other folks in the meeting won't hear it. And please make sure that your name appears at the bottom of the screen. I know a lot of us share computers with other people, but we'd like to have you identified as the person participating in the meeting. So where you see on the bottom left-hand corner, my name appears, just make sure it's your name that's there. I'm going to turn it back over to Debbie, who's going to turn it over to Dolores, I believe she is on the line to introduce our Senate champion, Senator Skoufis.
Yes. We're so glad you're here, Senator Skoufis, and I'm going to turn it over to Dolores, who is one of your constituents, and she's going to introduce you.
Hi, can you hear me? Yes? Okay. I am so happy to introduce our bill sponsor in the Senate. He is my Senator, James Skoufis. After serving 6 years in the New York State Assembly, he was elected to the New York State Senate in 2018. He's from Cornwall, New York. He's been a tireless advocate for his constituents in his fight for a stronger education system and better quality of life in our community. He currently serves as chair of the Senate Investigations and Government Operations Committee, and we're grateful to have a sponsor who demonstrates the same unwavering commitment to our cause as he does to every other endeavor. I've had the pleasure of working with him while I was in county government for many years. He's the real deal. He's genuine and caring and trying to do the right thing always. So I'd like to congratulate him also on the birth of his daughter, Ava Rose. So thank you very much for being with us today. It means a lot.
It's really my pleasure. And the next time I have an opening on my press team, I might be looking to hire you, Dolores. You were very generous. It's great to see you. And as you can, if you listen very, very closely in my Zoom box, you can hear the most wonderful thing in the world when you have a newborn in your house, and that is quiet. And so I appreciate that, Dolores and Debbie. It's great to see you. Julia, thanks for having me. And look, we all know why we're here. We're here because this is the year we need to get this bill done. And it's been, many years at this point that the bill's been around. We all have worked very hard to get the ball moved down the field over that time. Hopefully none of you have despaired. Okay, this year's gone by, we didn't pass it. This year went by, we didn't pass it. Because there's been significant progress along the way. We're now up to almost 30 co-sponsors in the state Senate. There's been significant progress at SED, this education department, on this issue. And I believe we are primed to get this across the finish line this year in the next couple of months before we break for the 2021 session. And so, look, my understanding is that you all are going to be fanning out to the virtual corners of the state after we meet here today to speak with my colleagues in the Senate and the Assembly, make sure this is prioritized for them. I can tell you, look, the first few months of the year are focused on the budget. There's a little bit of legislative activity, but most of that activity is just repassing bills that we had passed in previous years. There's not much new activity that happens before the budget. So we got the budget done about a couple of weeks ago, and now we are training our focus on new legislation. And I could tell you, each member submits a list to our leadership in the Senate. What are our most important bills, our most important priorities for the next couple months to get done? And this bill is at the top of my list. This bill needs to get done in 2021. You all have waited long enough as far as I'm concerned. And let's be real, this is about, with all due respect, yes, it's about you, but more importantly, it's about the people you serve. And you all have spent years through training and education and studying, learning how to help all kinds and all walks of people here in New York State. And yet, because of this arcaic law that exists in New York, you can only assist and provide support and desperately needed help at times to a sliver of the very people you are equipped to help. And so we need to change that. I'm hopeful we are going to change that. And it's going to be in no small part to some of the other champions in the Senate, including Senator John Mannion, who I saw just join the Zoom and hopefully is familiar with many of you. He's a new member, but this issue is near and dear to his heart. And he is guns a-blazing 4 months into his term. And so it's great to have him in this fight and all of you in this fight. And let's get it done this year.
Thank you very much, Senator Skoufis. It's really a pleasure to have you here with us today. And we know you'll continue to fight for us as the session continues. And we're very excited to get this done. So thanks. You've been a tremendous champion and support for all of us.
My pleasure. Thank you.
I've been giving a bit of a lobby 101 to our crowd. We're joined here, I think today, with over 100 professionals and parents who are looking to get this done this year. So I've been giving a little bit of an advocacy 101 while we wait for your co-sponsor in the Assembly and our third champion on this issue. So if you don't mind, you're welcome to leave whenever you can, or you're welcome to stay. But just wanted to let you know what's next up on the agenda. So where I believe I left off was that was your name on the bottom of the screens. And I think just for all of your edification, in case you've never done this before, just wanted to give you a sense of what to expect during these meetings. They'll sometimes be a little bit improvised, just like this rally has been today, but we'll have about 30 minutes. You'll notice from the calendar invitation, we'll have about 30 minutes for each meeting. Sometimes they'll go a little bit shorter, sometimes they might go a little bit longer, but essentially they're 30 minutes long. And you'll likely see me or one of the members of the NYSABA Legislative Committee at every meeting. And as I said, they will, one of us will kick it off and introduce ourselves, and then we'll conduct some kind of round robin so that everybody in the Zoom can introduce themselves, and so that the legislator with whom we're meeting has a sense of who is participating in the event. And that same person who does who sort of kicks it off will sort of explain the purpose of the meeting, which is obviously to get support for this legislation. And depending on the legislator's familiarity with the bill, this may be a 2-minute conversation, or it may take 5 or 6 or 10. And that will determine whether or not that will be determined upon whether or not the legislator has already already put their name on the bill, or if they're new to the issue still, then we'll do a little bit of a history on what is behavior analysis, what is the licensing law that we're looking to change and where it came from and how we got here. And then after, at that point, if the legislator or the legislator staff have any questions, then we'll try to answer some of those. And then we'd really like to, at some point, turn it over to those of you who are also participating in the meeting to offer your own perspective. And as I mentioned earlier, if there's a strong chance right now, because we have so many co-sponsors on these bills, that your legislator may already have agreed to co-sponsor the bill. So if that is the case, the sort of first half of the meeting might actually go relatively quickly. And we might turn it over to you a little bit sooner than we might have otherwise, because there's no need to go through the history. And in which case, that's where your elevator speech, as I mentioned before, will come in very handy. And don't be surprised if when you're meeting with your legislator, they ask you for your address. Don't be thrown off by this. This is a very natural question for legislators to ask, especially of their constituents. They know their districts like the back of their hand, and they want to know exactly where you are because they remember every voter they've touched in the past, and they want to know that you really are part of their district. And once we are through all talking about the issue, and we feel as though our questions have been answered, and hopefully we've signed on yet another supporter of our bill, I or another member of the NYSABA Legislative Committee will wrap it up by saying thank you and asking the legislator to sign on if we haven't already done so. And again, I just wanted to say how appreciative we all are of your time and your commitment to this cause, to all of the emails and letters that have already gone out to legislators, to the time you've spent getting ready for today, for being here at this rally, and for your willingness to participate in our meetings this week. So thank you very much. I'm going to check in with Maureen to see if Assemblymember Crystal Peoples-Stokes has joined us. Maureen, you are on mute.
Julia, it's Elizabeth. It doesn't seem she's in with us right now. The assembly sponsor. Okay,
thanks, Elizabeth. Then I think give us a few more minutes and see if she doesn't join onto the program. Thanks, everyone. Please just.
Maureen's having difficulty unmuting right now, so we're trying to solve that technical issue.
Okay, it's fixed. Sorry, everyone. It was disabled, but thank you, Elizabeth, for hopping on. That's all I was going to say is that the majority leader has not signed on just yet. So not sure if we should keep waiting or wrap up. What do you think?
I'd like to give it another minute, Maureen, if we could. I just reached out to her office to see if they know her status. Everyone, again, I'm putting my email in the chat. For those of you who might be willing to join a few more meetings beyond what you've already signed up to do for this week, the more the merrier, as I see it, for every meeting, especially because we have had some last minute cancellations and would love to have as much participation and support for all of this. And I'm told that the assembly member is about to sign up. So I think I just saw Vanessa. So you'll be on deck in a minute, Vanessa. And anyone looking for the schedule, please email me. My email is in the chat and I can get that to you via email. If you want to take a look at the other meetings we have scheduled and then let us know what meetings you would like to join, we'd be happy to do it that way as well. I think we have I have a Word document that has the full list of meetings for the whole week.
I think the assembly leader has joined. Is that correct? Okay. Well, I would like to take a minute, if that's okay, to say a few words about Assembly Leader Crystal Peoples-Stokes. Hi, everyone. I'm Vanessa Petrone. I teach at Damon College, just outside of Buffalo, New York, and I'm also a member of the NYSABA board. I'm so pleased to have the honor to introduce our assembly sponsor for our legislation, Assemblywoman and Majority Leader Crystal Peoples-Stokes. The Assemblywoman is well known among her colleagues and constituents as being a woman who puts people and principles before politics. She's a tireless advocate for vulnerable populations and is forever seeking to create opportunities to uplift women, people of color, and really all disenfranchised communities. I'm so proud to say that I'm her constituent, and speaking as a member of the 141st District and also just the larger Buffalo community, we're so proud to have such a tireless advocate representing us. Representative Crystal Peoples-Stokes entered the Assembly in 2003. She's held many roles, serving as chair to the Assembly Subcommittee on Minority and Women-Owned Businesses, the Committee on Governmental Operations, and the Women's Legislative Caucus. In 2018, she was elevated to the position of Majority Leader of the New York State Assembly. Even in that very important and busy role, she's remained committed to the causes which she holds dear. We're so fortunate to have her here with us today, and New York State behavior analysts are proud to have her as our sponsor, and we're thrilled to hear from her now. Thank you. That was a build up to to a pause. Let me see if I can solve any technical issues. There we are.
Yeah, you gotta let me unmute myself. Good afternoon. I trust everybody's doing well. I certainly do want to say that it was a nice ride in from Buffalo today. Are you all able to hear me?
Yes,
we can hear you just fine.
Okay. So I want to thank all of you, the parents, students, and behavior analyst providers who are assembled today to support this really important legislation. You all know we've had this since, I want to say 16 or 17, and we haven't been able to get it done yet, but that does not mean that it is not doable. That just means that we have to keep up our advocacy, and for me to keep pressing with my colleagues to make sure that they understand how important this is. One of the things that most people don't understand about state government is how much scope of practice work we actually have to delve into and do deep dives in and get to hear from all sides of that scope of practice on what should happen or what can happen. And it's been real clear to me that hearing from both sides of this issue is that this legislation is the right thing to do. And so I want to thank you for your continued work on it, and I will commit to you that I will continue to do likewise. And hopefully one day soon, we'll be able to celebrate the passage of this really important legislation. So again, thank you so much for your advocacy, and look forward to catching up with you all soon.
Thank you very much, Assemblywoman. Have a safe trip.
We actually have arrived and headed to the Capitol for the Rules Committee meeting.
Great. Thank
All
you
right,
very
thank you all.
much.
Great day.
care.
Bye-bye.
Maureen, would you like to provide the closing remarks?
Sure. So we just want to thank our amazing sponsors, Majority Leader People-Stokes, Senator Skoufis, and Senator Mannion for being here with us today. We also want to thank you all for being here to lend your voice to the urgency of fixing our license in New York. We look forward to a very productive week. Please look out for our social media posts and share them and tag your legislators. And we look forward to seeing you in our advocacy meetings. And we thank you all for being here.